It is my privilege and joy that we can continue our Bible study in the Crucible with Christ, having the subtitle of this presentation, Meekness in the Crucible. Now we all know that the event of our soon coming Savior is very near, and he needs to prepare a people that can stand. But these people that can stand when he comes, they must have something to inherit in the new earth. And the word in Matthew 5:5, the blessing is there that says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Now, it doesn't mean that Jesus says, if you're meek here on earth, you will be the head of the people. You will be the politician or whatever. No, that meekness that we need to have when Jesus comes is the necessity to inherit the new earth, the renewed earth that Jesus will do after the 1,000 years of judgment. So, very important for us to be ready when he comes so that we can be able to inherit the new earth. Because only the meek will be there. Because anyone else cannot enter there. Because meekness is a fruit of the Spirit, and we'll see how we can get to have it. So Jesus sits as the refiner and makes us to become meek, because that what is gold and silver does not mean physical gold, because the gold that needs to come out is the purity, is that clearness that I am a child of God, a creature of God, to be in the truth. As we know that we are born in the lie, and this inheritance that we have from Adam makes us to be not meek. There is no way ever to be meek in the error of our spirit. In the state of a lie, when unjust things or injury happens, you must react with the same reaction to be against it, and you have resentment. So there's no way when we are injured and have this state in our mind to be meek, that is, to allow it to happen. That only if we are in the truth is possible. Only in the truth we can show that injury does not injure us, and it's not against us personally. We can let it happen. Now, in order to learn how these things work, we need to understand the functions of the Spirit. And as it is, he has an entrance and an exit, because everything functions according to a channel, and it needs love, freedom, justice, and that needs to be taken from outside, from a source, through faith and through trust, in order to put the will into power and action, that he puts the body to do what is needed. So the Spirit is a channel, and then the next channel who comes after the Spirit is the body. So the body responds to that input with emotions and with doing what the Spirit commands through the will to do the body. Now, if in the state of the Spirit is the truth, then God is automatically the source of need, and everything we do is free. We don't use love for us, we just use it to give it to our neighbor and to all around us, and then our emotions and our body will function correctly, because we have at our exit exactly that, what we need to give power to the next channel that is behind the Spirit. Now, being born in the state of the lie, that we are a God, then, of course, Satan and people are the ones we are dependent on. We still exercise faith and trust in what is said to us, but we are not aware that that's the wrong thing. That's why God brings the crucible to the people we are dependent on, so that we may recognize that dependency in order to become free from it. Because the worst thing, or the most evil thing of this nature is, it is unconscious to us. And it uses only the good things, but it uses the good needs for itself. And that's why it is so deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, the heart of man. Just these days, I had a patient. He has a daughter, 6 years old, and she has a mother-in-law. And while we were talking and I was explaining her the technique of our being and thinking, she suddenly said, well, I now know who's my problem. And it's my mother-in-law. Well, she says, my mother-in-law is the one that doesn't give me peace. I mean, she doesn't let me alone. Well, I said, yes, because you're dependent on your mother-in-law. And then she said, no, I'm not dependent. I don't want anything from her except to leave me alone. And I said, well, you expect from her to leave you alone. That is dependency. You might not need anything else, just to leave you alone. But you know how mothers-in-law are? They think the nephew, the child, is hers because it comes from her son, and that's very precious. But she thinks, well, the mother cannot take care so good about that child as I could, so they must come in between and try to rule over the others. Yes, that's the mother-in-law deception. She wants the good, but she disrespects the mother who God gave the child. And now, sitting there with my patient, I asked her, so is your mother-in-law the problem? Or is it your reaction the problem? And because I wanted her to realize that's her reaction, I gave her an example of another discussion where I spoke to a young woman who was abused by her father, and I asked that young woman, I said, is it the abuse or the way you think about the abuse that brings your body's issue? And then, of course, that young woman and my patient also responded, well, it's the abuse, it's the event. Now, if it is the event, you can change nothing. But it cannot be the event. Because the event happened and it's physical. But what is that? What makes it all worse is the reaction that the state of my spirit or the error in us tells us that was done against you. It's your body that was injured. And now how can you let it happen without resentment? How can you do that? Because that would be meekness. You see, no matter what happened in our life, when things don't go the right way, our reaction takes us prison. We take ourselves in prison by exercising force and compulsion over the other. My patient doesn't want to let her mother-in-law do what she wants. She wants to stop her coming in between. Can she do that? No. Because the mother-in-law is an individual that she cannot govern. So she tries with force to do that. And what happens with her body? Because if the Spirit gives force out, which is the opposite of love, then in the body comes negative emotions as a result, and pain and disease. Who makes that? It's the mother-in-law? Never can be. It's always the reaction to what happens outside of us. And that is so important to understand. It is never the event. Because every event we must judge from the perspective of a creature or a God. And the way I see the things determine my liberty or my self-destruction. So Jesus is very plain. In this chapter 5, he explains what he wants us to understand. And he starts from verse 38 and says, "Ye have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil. Resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twice. And whosoever shall give to him that asks thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away." Now, does that mean that we should do things undiscerned? Just pleasing everyone who asks anything from us? Is that what he asks? We need to see more deep how a human functions so that we understand correctly what Jesus tells us here. Let's go further. He says, "Ye have heard that it had been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that we may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." Now, evidently, in this passage, but also in the whole Bible, when things outside of us don't work well, when we might be injured physically, or some people believe they can be injured spiritually, which basically is impossible because no one can injure the spirit. You can only injure yourself by judging those things incorrectly that come unto you. Because by this state, you cannot judge correctly what happens to you. So everyone who is injured, everyone who is in a difficult situation, will react here against himself. He takes himself spiritually in prison and destroys his body. That's always the process, how it happens. So Jesus here says, don't change your environment. Only you need to change yourself. I mean, that's the whole gospel. That's the whole thing. But the evil eye by which we look, we can only look outside of us. We can only see what others are doing right, or better, we observe those things which are not right. And we might be right that what they do and say is not right, but they don't do it to me if I'm in the truth. But if I am in the lie, I must take it personally. And then I will destroy myself. I take myself in prison and my body will be destroyed. So that makes that once for all clear. We have just an inside issue, not an outside issue. It is so easy to deceive a person because all believe their issues are outside of them. It was like a light shining on her face when she said, now I know whom I have a trouble with. My patient said, it's my mother-in-law. But when I asked her, is it your mother-in-law or is it your reaction? She answered correctly according to the idea that I told her with the other woman that was abused by her father. But I could see her in her eyes, I could see it on her face. It was hard for her to believe. Because she said, so is it just about me? Is it only my way of reacting? Yes, I said, because your body is sick, because of the way you react on your mother-in-law. Because your mother-in-law cannot make you sick. She cannot take yourself into prison because she cannot come into your spirit and do there something. It's you that react according to that situation against yourself. Wanting to stop your mother-in-law to do that what in your eyes is not allowed to do. But it's only your reaction. That's why it is so hard today and during these 2.5 years, seeing that people like to have the enemy outside of them. Oh yes, and if it's an invisible one or whatever, then they might fight it. Our enemy is never, ever outside of us. I will repeat this again and again because it's the core issue that men have. We always, without exception, want to fix the outside. We must fix those around us because they are our sources. And since I have the need of love, then this need they must fulfill unto me. But how can they do that? So that's the one thing we have to understand. We have to fix an inside issue, never an outside issue. The second is, what is it all about? It is about the need of the Spirit, about love, freedom, justice. And Jesus says, you shall be perfect in this, like the Father is perfect. So if we would be the child of God in our spirit, in our heart, then of course we could love those around us. We could bless those who do us wrong, that curse you. Do good to those that hate you. How will you do that? The only way to do it is to become a child of God, because that ye may be the children of your Father, which is in heaven. In what do we need to be perfect? Do we need to be perfect like God in His being or His capacities? No. There is but one thing. We need to be exactly perfect like Him. And there should be no difference if someone sees us or sees the Father. And that is in the exercise of love. Since there is one God, there is only one kind of love. And if this love comes out of us, it proves that we are bound to our Father in heaven. And then we are perfect like Him because He loves perfectly and we will love perfectly. So this perfection is according to the action of love. So if we have understanding the channel, God, not Satan, people at the entrance. If I have here God, which is love and exercises love, I take his love and give it to my neighbor. Then, where I give it to him, he can be like he wants. He can curse me, because I'm independent to everyone I give love. But if I have them on this side, through sinful nature, then of course I am in a trap, and I always will give the opposite of love. I will give compulsion and force, and my body will be sick. So let us be very clear. We have an inside issue, and we have to be perfect just in one thing: to love like God loves. Jesus could say, you see me, you see the Father. Did they see the Father in person as how he looks, like Jesus looked as a human? No. Jesus was perfect like his Father because he loved like his Father, because he lived from the Father's love. That is what we need to understand. But he was in the truth. That's why he could do that. So let us remember, there are only these two roots of all things, the two states our spirit can be in. And the lie tells us you're spiritually independent. Now this lady thinks that she's independent on her mother-in-law. But the way she reacts gives clearly evidence that she wants something from her mother-in-law, and if you want something from your mother-in-law, you're dependent on her. And she just wants to be left alone. It's too much that you want. It proves your spiritual dependency. But this lie tells you, no, I'm not spiritually dependent, I'm independent. Well, if you would be independent, then you could show meekness to your mother-in-law by letting her injure you because she doesn't injure you. And you have no resentment. But you can do that only if you're in the truth, in which you're bound to God and by which you see your mother-in-law as not being able to neither give you a gain nor a loss. So the spiritual independency that we believe we are, God must prove it that it's not possible. You always trust and you always believe something. So you're spiritual dependent. Now, the lie says everything is mine. If you get hit on your cheek, or if someone curses you, if someone does you wrong, you take it personally. If you would be in the truth, nothing belongs to me. They cannot hurt me. They cannot injure me. And then if someone forces you to go a mile, and how can you do that? Because it's your power, it's your time. But if it's not your power, not your time, you do nothing out of yourself, then you can do it. Because you don't do it for you, you do it for God. And if you're a God, everything revolves around me. Everything must be about me. In reality, it's nothing about me. Nothing revolves around me. So, having this, these are the four things that are opposites. We must see them. They are the so to say, first effect of this terrible lie that we have in us. This would be freedom. So, we saw last time how God made us to function. We need love, freedom, and justice. And we need to satisfy ourselves by seeing that it's a gain. And by this we say yes to it. And then we have the other criteria, that is loss. And God has given us that zero line that we should not come below to it so that we may have no loss. So we must avoid loss. And loss is the opposite of love, is loss, the opposite of freedom and justice. Yeah? So we should never go with the opposites of our needs, but just for our needs. So that's the mechanism that no one can change. It's absolute, it's function. No one can change that function. And that's why we need to know in the end who has the loss. Because who has the loss when the mother-in-law comes and wants to help you and you see it as a danger? Who has the loss when you have been abused, or when you have someone curses you, or whatever they do to you wrong? Who has the loss? Now, if you're a God, you say, I have it. If you are in the truth, you say, it's not my loss. And not so easy. I wonder what Ezekiel had thought of when God took away the lust of his eyes. As a picture, what happens when there will be the loss of the people and their children will die and so on, and the destruction of the Jerusalem. So, who is the loss? Now, if I think I'm a God, it's personal loss. But if I'm the truth, it's the Creator's loss. Who lost in all those events? Was it not God himself? He's the only one who loses in this universe. The people that are going to be lost, the angels that are going to be lost, it's his loss. But he is independent. But still, it's his loss. It's not ours. But if I'm a God, I must consider myself the victim. And in reality, if I can never be a God, I can never be a victim. So let us look to understand this process, because this thought between gain and loss is very fast. But it is at the exit of the Spirit. At the entrance is identity. If identity is correct, then I know I can never have a loss to what others are doing. No matter who it is, the mother-in-law, the husband, the wife, no one can injure me. Then the result is meekness. But if I believe I'm a God, then I must protect myself because I can be injured. And you have no choice. It depends on the injury. Now, if it's a small thing, you might go over it because it's not a great loss that has been done unto you. But if it is a heavier loss that someone does unto you, no choice to be meek. You cannot be meek. You can do whatever you want. Meekness will not come out. You will have resentment even if you try to keep yourself back, but you might not react outwardly, but inside you still will destroy yourself. And your body will show it. So, let's understand. In the truth, I can say yes and I can say no to that which is opposite to love, to freedom, to truth. We have to say no to that. But we also have to say no to having too much. When I drink, I must stop drinking. That's why I start drinking, it's a gain, and I stop drinking, it's a loss. So we need that yes, yes, and no, no, how Jesus explains it. So we need to have that. But in the lie, we lose that loss. I mean, we lose the no because others are making us loss. So let's write it down. Maybe I make sure my next presentation, no one can make me loss something personally, because I do not belong to myself. I am not my own. Everyone that does loss does loss to God, not to me personally. I might feel it, but it's not about me. So that's what we need to attain. So there are in the Bible, in Galatians 5, 2 fruits. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Well, here we have it. Meekness is a fruit of the Spirit. It's a fruit of the new identity, that I am a child of God. Because then I don't take things personally. But the fruit of the selfish nature, the error says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envying, murder, drunkenness, revealings, and such like this. That's what becomes evident. The inside state is not visible. That's in the spirit. But it will come out. But when is it visible? Because this can be nice, can be look so well, to be joyful and peaceful. And when do things really show up? Well, in the crucible. Then when the heat comes. Because only in the heat things are proven to be real. Because selfish nature can, for its own good, go a long way and can perform good things. Be vegan, be whatever you want to be, doing your exercise. But one thing you can never, when someone injures you, you cannot let it happen. You will go against it. You will be not gentle, and you will not be without resentment. Because it's an unconscious action. You immediately will feel it. And it reveals in your emotions that you have thought the wrong way. I mean, from the wrong state of a being. So when we are under stress, when the things are heated up, then things cannot be hidden. Then things cannot be hidden. Then this, which might be like a chameleon, showing so much greatness and giving and being so kind, in a moment, someone curses you or does you exactly the opposite of what you do, being so kind. It will be revealed what is in you. It's in the stress point. That's why God brings us the crucible into the relationships that we have to see, did someone injure me or not? So when will I have which reaction? Because these are the fruits, these are the things that are visible. There's still something invisible, and that is motivation. And motivation in the lie is, it's about me. And motivation in the truth, it is not about me, it is about my Father's business, not about my business. So these are the two motivations. Selfishness and pride, it's always about me. That's why I have to strive with others. I have to fight with them. I have to impose them the good. I cannot stop it. And especially when they do me wrong, I must correct them. I must speak it out. I get no peace until we sit down and talk all about it. Not in the truth you do that. In the truth, you can let things untalked of. You don't need to solve them because they're not your business. But if it's your business, you need to solve all things. And I have seen so many patients that are just very sick because they say, I want to talk to my partner, whoever it is, that we should talk things out. I said, you don't need that. Because you cannot force the other to talk things out. He might just leave them alone, so leave him alone. You don't need it. Because you don't need the other to understand you or not understand you. You might only need the other in order to do something together, but not for yourself. So, we don't need to talk things out. It's not needed. I don't need to go and put some barrier to my mother-in-law. She can do whatever she wants. It's her God-given sphere of action. And if he wants to stop her, he can stop her, but I cannot stop her because I'm equal with her. So it can never be about me. It can only be about my Father's business when I am in the truth. We can only know that we are not We can only react correctly to injury or to any evil that happens when we know it's not about me. They don't injure me. They don't crucify me, Jesus said. They crucify my Father. But that it's not about me. It's who am I. That's the state that we must change. So we have Jesus. Jesus inherited from his father the truth and inherited from his mother the lie. From his conception, he bound himself to the Father. And through his whole life, he crucified that thing. That is, it was there, but it was never active. It was always dead. Always dead. Because he didn't use it. It was there because he inherited it. And on the cross, he eliminated it completely from the human spirit. And since he did that, the fruit of the flesh did not exist in his life. They cannot exist because he was never using the idea that he's a God. But he was a God behind his humanity. And he could react against that unrighteousness that was done unto him, making righteousness. But he fulfilled exactly his Sermon on the Mount, because he said, it is my Father whom they crucify. It's my Father whom they mock. It's my Father whom they spew in the face. It's my Father whom they beat. It's not about me. And my Father will take care of justice. So he could love those who hated him. He prayed for them. He was meek. He had no resentment towards those leaders in Israel, against the high priest, against Herod, against Pilate. There was nothing. He was meek because he said, come unto me all that you are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take upon you my yoke and learn from me, because I'm meek and lowly in spirit. Because he knew as a human who he was. He was the Son of God, a creature of God. He was not God in his humanity. That his being as a God was hidden. It was, humanity was around his divinity. So Jesus had a hard time because he was a God in the back, and he had to act never as a God, because that's the wrong identity. That's why Jesus brought all the fruits of the Spirit, because he was in the truth. He could say, who sees my Father sees me. Because not that the Father looks like Jesus. No. It was that on the actions, it was love that he emanated in everything he did. So he was perfect in love, like his Father is perfect in love as well. So there comes the day in which Christ, the one that leads the crucible, will finish his work. And we will become free indeed. We will know who we are, and will have put this, like in the life of Jesus, totally mortifying it. And of course, when we are then in the situations that all around us, things don't go well, we are persecuted or beaten up and injured physically, and people might mock around us, and still out of us will come the fruit of the Spirit, because we are his children. This will not exist in our life anymore. What a day that will be. Do you believe you will reach it? I believe I will reach it. It will be the greatest day to not have this make my life miserable. To just be inside of me free. Oh, what a great, great privilege we have to gain the victory. That's an inside victory, not an outside one. But when we have an inside truth, then the world can be around us, storms and whatever. We will stay in peace because it is not about me anymore. May God bring that day sooner in our lives so that we can do and bring in righteousness the offerings that are needed in order the work should be finished.